Hi everyone, today is May 1st. Welcome to the Hastings-on-Hudson Board of Education meeting. And we begin tonight with a hearing on our budget. I don't know if anybody's here for that purposes, but if anybody is here to make a comment, feel free to go up to the podium. And
I have to make a comment because this guy knows something about budget problems.
you know what, then what we'll do with that is then we have a separate public comment period that'll come up. Well, we're actually going to divvy it up a little bit, but it'll come up in probably the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So this right now is just budget. And it looks like nobody has any comments on the budget. Okay, so with that, normally we would just go into the opening of our meeting, but I'm told that we have some... Oh, okay, so we'll close the hearing, and now we will open the regular meeting. Welcome to our meeting. Okay. Okay, so normally... So this is we're gonna split it in two, our public comment, only because I think we have some younger folk here tonight to make a comment. So rather than have them have to sit through the first 15 minutes, we're going to say if our younger students wanted to get up. I think I heard we have some sixth graders. Is that right? So we would then invite you up, and then we're going to hold off on the rest of public comment for another 15 minutes or so. But in the meantime, if any of our younger students wanted to get up, we just ask you to come on over to that wooden thing with the microphone and say your piece.
Hello. My name is Denham.
I'm Andreas.
I'm Bowie.
I'm Melody.
And we're here to present to have a community skate park in Hastings-on-Hudson. We've gotten 400 signatures, and we've had 2 meetings with the Parks and Rec department.
We're looking for a space in Reynolds Field for this skate park. What would you like to say?
And we have some sheets like that have the benefits of having a skate park in Hastings. And we were wondering if we could maybe get a space in maybe Reynolds Field for the skate park. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your comment, and for I also will thank you on behalf of the board for taking action. I think it's terrific that you guys have put together a petition. You've gotten 400 signatures. You've really done your homework, and I love that you have things for us to look at. And I have to say, at your young ages, that's incredibly impressive. So more power to you guys. That's really awesome. So what I can tell you is we can't make a decision right now from the board, of course, but it's something that we can absolutely consider and discuss. And I'm going to ask you, the woman in the purple dress is Janine Janauer. She's our clerk, and she can take materials and include them in our minutes if you would like. And we will put this on an agenda for our facilities committee meeting, and we may even come back to you and ask you for more information, and we'll keep you posted on how it goes. But thank you so much.
While we have it,
Yeah.
where in Reynolds? Like where were you thinking?
Any space that we can get, but like the lower field, lower like where the park is.
Yeah.
Like next to the tennis court?
So like some of that space between like the basketball court and the tennis courts, cut some of that out and turn it into a skate park. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, another question for you. I like skate parks, man. Any skate parks that you skate at currently, like the one in Yorktown or otherwise? Like what kind of?
We go to Ardsley.
Okay. Oh, the one over at Ashford Park.
Sometimes Yonkers. But
Is Yonkers the one by the ice skating rink?
Yeah.
Yep.
And Nyack.
Okay.
Obviously you know.
I've been around. But the Ardsley one is like a size that is, the Yonkers one's got a bowl and everything.
Yeah,
you couldn't do that there, but the Ardsley one is.
Ardsley is like more size. Like we're looking at like 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. Yeah, and part of the reason why we need a skate park in Hastings is because
For
for like you have to plan to go to the skate park instead of just like walking or skating to the skate park.
Right.
Like you have to plan ahead to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask you a question, too? You said you've already been to 2 meetings with the rec department?
Yeah.
What have they told you so far?
Well, we're also looking at a space Zinzer,
Yeah.
but we just are trying to get like any space that we can. That's why we're like going around. And they like we talked about them with like our signatures and like our research that we've done with like the ramps called Rhino ramps. And they're basically ramps that are quiet, safe, and like it would be around $80,000 for like a park with the Rhino ramps and $120 for a poured concrete park.
Any other questions? Well, thank you again, and you've really done your homework. You have answers to all our questions, and, you know, you're doing better than a lot of grown-ups, so
Yeah,
thank you, and stay
any
involved, and we
paperwork
will...
In terms of like specs and costs and stuff like that, give to
I'll
Janine.
scan it and email it to
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
And we'll
you.
bring it up at our
My
next
son's
Facilities
right-
Committee
he's
meeting.
right behind you, man. Cool.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys so much. Okay, so we will have another public comment, but we're going to go through the initial parts of our meeting right now, like I said. And by the way, you guys, if you want to stay, you can stay, and if you want to go home, you can do that too. Okay, so...
Yeah, you can go home if you'd like. Or not.
Okay, so with that, let's move on to announcements, and that's Tony.
Great. So we have a bunch of events coming up in the next couple of weeks, our next board meeting being May 15th. But leading up to that, we have a mindfulness parenting workshop by Christopher Willard, Dr. Willard. It's hosted by the Rivertowns parents. That is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Our auditorium will be hosting that event. Our school in our auditorium, sorry. May 3rd is Meet the Candidates Night. We have our 4 candidates who are running for the board. This is co-sponsored by the PTSA and our League of Women Voters. It's at Hillside in the cafe at 7 p.m. That's May 3rd. That's this Thursday. Also, May 5th, this weekend, we have the HEF fundraiser, and that is at the Captain Lawrence Brewing Company. It starts at 7:30. May 9th is the first grade art show. That's at Hillside at 6 o'clock. May 9th is also the PTSA pedestrian safety meeting. That's at Lloyd Library at 7 o'clock. May 9th is voter registration. A lot going on May 9th. For school budget and board elections, at the high school lobby from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. On May 10th, we have a board committee, subcommittee of the special education happening at 6:45 p.m. in this room. May 10th, we also have the high school spring concert in the auditorium starting at 7. May 14th, we have the second grade art show at Hillside starting at 6. Also on May 14th, we have the middle school and high school art show in the Cochran Gym, also at 6. May 15th, we have the school budget vote and board elections. That's happening in the Cochran Gym from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it's an all-day event. May 15th is also the middle school, high school art show again from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Cochran Gym. So it's a great opportunity to come out and vote, but also get to see our kids' artwork. May 15th, we have a health and safety meeting in the lecture room at 1 o'clock. And we have the FMS PTSA meeting in Lloyd Library that night at 6:30. And finally, we have our regular Board of Ed meeting here in the lecture room at 7:30. So we have a lot coming up in the next 2 weeks, a lot of great opportunities for our community to engage, both with the district, but each at school level as well. So May 15th is the budget and board election, so make sure you mark that down. Some of the highlights that I'm happy to share with you this evening. If you take a look up here, we had a few of our students who participated in the Farragut Middle School Science Fair go on and participate at Tri-County Science Fair. So Amanda and B, they placed first in the category psychology. Their task was how does multitasking, their project was how does multitasking affect your performance. So it was great. It was a great presentation. A couple of people were there and got to see the kids' projects. I know, Lisa, you were there. I had a chance to stop by and see here at the middle school when they had the science fair, and they had a really wonderful research to support their work, and it was great. And then Jacob He placed third in his category with his project, How Does the Ratio of Amount of Papers to Area of Papers Affect Perception of Thickness? So clearly we're going to have future, science research winners here coming up in high school. So that was one thing that came up. We also had staff members trained in medical response techniques. So that was coordinated by the Hastings Health Office. So 16 staff members received CPR training, 8 received AED training, and 7 received first aid training. We had a Scholastic Awards Summer Scholarship. That's Anila, a 10th grade student. She won a full scholarship through the Scholastic Awards Summer Scholarship contest to attend the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers Summer Program in Vermont. So she won the award from a field of 1,200 Scholastic Gold Key winners. Wow. So it's a pretty significant award and a pretty exciting opportunity for her. Also, last week we had the Latin Dance Festival for our 5th graders, and they learned about dance and culture of Latin America, and they studied as part of their 5th grade curriculum. They were taught about the background of dances such as the tango, bachata, merengue, mambo, salsa. It was great, and they danced. Each class got to perform. I know one of our board members was there. The kids were really amazing and wonderful and excited to perform. So thank you to them for that. We also had our, the art is going to be exhibited in the Cochran Gym, like you heard, but we had the AP Art Show last week, and that was up in Lloyd Library, and our students, our AP Art students, spotlighted their work. It was really quite amazing, from drawn artwork to photographs to sketches that were done with ballpoint pens. It was insane, really, really impressive. And you'll see in that picture, you see a collection of a bunch of the different types of artwork. So that's something you can see on May 15th. We have some news about our academic challenge team. Hastings High School senior Joel Gardner he's the MVP at the 28th annual Omar Beckins Invitational Academic Challenge at Byram Hills. And as the captain of the team, Joel scored a record 805 points, becoming the 28th inductee into the Hall of Fame. So that's pretty significant. Very proud of Joel.
And I think our ACTCHAL team, I heard, I'm not sure if it's right, we're sending 2 teams to Washington, D.C.?
That is what I heard as well, but I have not confirmed that.
Okay, when it's confirmed,
right,
we'll
we can
put it
find
out.
And that's our next board meeting is on May 15th.
Oh, and I will just add, there was a really lovely event over the weekend, and I think it was the first time out by SEPTA. It was our special education PTSA held a trivia night fundraiser, and it was just a hit, soup to nuts. It was standing room only. It was a lot of fun and raised money for amazing grants that SEPTA can give. So thank you, SEPTA, for doing that. Let me just ask, before we go into winter sports, because that can be lengthy, should we switch public comment and do that before?
Whatever.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So now we'll move on to the remainder of our public comment. So if anybody has a question, please just come up to the podium. And we just ask that you state your name. You don't have to state your address, but just let us know if you're a resident of Hastings.
Hi, yes. My name is Yvette Olivaria. I live on Stanley Avenue, and I've been a Hastings resident for 20 years. I have a letter I'm going to read to you guys. Dear board members, I come to you this evening with a distressed heart, but hoping to find some answers to some very important questions that have been left unanswered by the Hillside School Counselor, Julianne Schneider, Hillside Principal Amy Casey, and the Superintendent of Schools, Anthony Sininas. I will start by giving a brief synopsis of the events that transpired last week. My 2nd grader came home with a newsletter from the school guidance counselor outlining a lesson that attempted to teach diversity through a read aloud of the book, The Colors of the Rainbow by Jennifer Moore. Students were then asked to pair off and use a Venn diagram to talk about their physical differences. When I reached out to the guidance counselor, I started by commending her efforts to infuse diversity into the curriculum, as I strongly believe our district needs to have thoughtful conversations and training about what multicultural education actually is and how to infuse it into day-to-day instruction. I then expressed how, after reading the letter, I was concerned about the unintended negative consequences of the lesson and activity. I started with the illustration of the cover, which was included in the newsletter, and I explained that the illustration depicts what appears to be a Caucasian child admiring finger puppets of children of color, and how that this is inappropriate for many reasons. First, it centers Caucasian as the norm and implies that the Caucasian child has the power to manipulate, which is harmful. In addition, it positions people of color as different and focuses on how they are just like us, again, centering whiteness as the norm. The other concern I expressed to the counselor was with the activity that preceded the read aloud. It was very divisive and isolating to single out students by physical characteristics. My son is a 7-year-old brown boy in a classroom of mostly Caucasian students, so he is already viewed as different. Yes, diversity should be celebrated, but not by clearly etching a divide between Caucasian students and those who are other. This lesson had a pervasive message of segregation and left me wondering how this lesson found its way into my son's classroom. Again, I expressed all of this to the guidance counselor and concluded by offering suggestions for making the lesson less harmful for all students involved, and finally I asked for more details of the lesson. 1, who was involved in creating the lesson? Why was The Colors of the Rainbow the book choice? It's a 15-year-old book. Was the lesson reviewed by anyone who is trained in teaching multicultural education or racial literacy? The counselor responded that because of my concerns, she would choose a different book and implement the suggested changes. Although I appreciated her response, it was clear that she didn't recognize the harm done to all students. In addition, she did not mention what actions would be taken to remedy the harm that had already occurred in my son's classroom. We live in a community with a wealth of resources at our disposal, which include persons trained in racial literacy. The parent group RISE works on issues of diversity in the community, and a group of teachers in the district that form the Race Matters Committee deal with issues of diversity in the schools. Those groups are great resources for teaching about diversity. Were any of the members of those groups consulted in creating the original lesson, or were they consulted to discuss the new lessons? Unfortunately, my inquiries have been ignored for the whole week, while not only corresponding with the guidance counselor, but with our superintendent of schools. I feel completely disheartened, dismayed, and disregarded. None of my questions regarding this harmful lesson have been answered, and I'm here pleading with the board to acknowledge what has occurred and to have Hillside recognize the error that occurred in my son's classroom. I implored the board to question and investigate what has occurred, and to commit to moving forward by having administration show transparency in answering the following questions. Who was involved in creating this harmful lesson? Why was The Colors of the Rainbow the book choice? Was the lesson reviewed by anyone who's trained in teaching about multicultural education or racial literacy? And what steps will the district take to remedy the harm done in Mrs. Marty's classroom? Again, how will this district ensure an instance like this does not occur again? And I thank you for your time.
Tony, do you want to respond?
I did respond via email. Ms. Nunez, I did respond to your email.
Does anybody on the board have a comment?
Yeah, I guess I just have one question, which is, what is, Ms. Oliveria, what is your suggestion as to both the harm that was done and an appropriate response to the harm done? As strictly as a conversation, I want to understand it from your perspective, both the harm and the remedy that you envision.
Okay, how about I shoot you an email, or we can talk about it another time. I have a previous engagement. So
That's fine, 100%.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Mrs. Olivari, I just want to thank you for making the comment and bringing it to our attention on this level, and that we definitely have been, again, not with respect to this particular one, but we have been made aware that there are times when kids are made to feel as others, and it's a concern for all children. It's something that impacts all children and all staff, and that we have to do everything in our power to make sure that no child is made to feel other in any way. So I thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Are there other public comments? Okay, so I think with that then we'll move on to our Winter Sports Award presentation, and I turn that over to Jesse?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Just to give quick explanation of how I hope to do this. I know we had a few other conflicts with some other events that were going on tonight, so we only have about half of us. In the fall, I asked all of the athletes to come stand up here and kind of be stared at by all the parents and Board of Education members. So I'm going to make it a little bit easier on this time. I'll just kind of talk about the season a little bit, talk about some of the accomplishments and some of my own personal takeaways from each of the few sports that we'll talk about today. But then I am going to ask you guys to come up front, so if parents want to get a photo or any of that, we give them the opportunity for it as well. Basically, on behalf of Maureen Bassman and myself in the athletic office, it really, the work with our coaches and, of course, the athletes really makes our experience every single season very, very different and really wonderful, right? Every single season is a little bit different from the last. We learn a little bit more every single time. And some of the faces in here, you're responsible for that. You're responsible for teaching us something a little new, giving us a different experience, something that we hadn't had before. So really, I want to start with just a kind of a thank you. We started this year doing banquets hosted by our Booster Club, which is really centered, instead of around awards, really just through the participation and the commitment that our varsity athletes make to that, 2 or 3 hours after school every single day, weekends, that kind of family or community that they create on their team. And we also don't want to not honor all of the honors and accomplishments of those individual athletes, and that's an attempt, today is kind of an attempt to do that. We're going to start with boys basketball. Now, I know there's actually a baseball dinner tonight, which is part of our conflict. But there's a few things that my real takeaway from the boys basketball season this year. We had a really, it was a great season. We had our Costello tournament here hosted, where we dedicated our brand new court from the summer. We went and traveled to, what was it, Yorktown? Maybe the Yorktown tournament? Yorktown tournament. It was a really successful season. Now, it was challenging, right? Of course, Chris is going to kill me, because, of course, I post up the fact that in the first round of sectionals, they really had a difficult loss in overtime to Valhalla, right? They went on the road at night. They played a great game, tied up with 2 seconds left. A gym packed to the rafters, right? And I talk about this not because I'm sure it's still painful to you, right? But because it instills, it offers this opportunity to our community, to your parents, to your friends that came to that game. It gives them the opportunity to really embrace our community and all the things that make us kind of special and fun and close. So that night, Chris, was my son Chris, his 5th birthday, right? My wife says to me, your son does not want to go to a basketball game at 7:30 at night on his birthday. And I said, well, he's 5. He wants to do whatever he keep him up at night. All right? So whether it was the hot dogs at the snack stand, or him staying up 3 hours past his bedtime, or the fact that they said happy birthday to him at halftime, it's those type of events, right, where he looks up to all of our Hastings athletes, especially our basketball players now, as if they're professional athletes, right? Like they are the ultimate. And so, Chris, you're here with me now, so I'm going to say thank you, because you helped provide that future for my son. Right? Whether he plays or not, I don't really care, but an appreciation for what brings us together, I think, is really important. So while it might be painful for you to have posted up there that loss to Valhalla, right? Hopefully what you take away from the season is that connection and what you give everybody else, okay? So I'm going to get that out of there so it's not so painful anymore, sorry. This year we basically had 3 award winners on our varsity boys basketball team. Emmett, who is unfortunately not here, Justin, who's unfortunately not here because they're both on the baseball team, who won 15-0 today. Yes.
Justin's mother is here.
Yes, yes, of course. There's a nice photo of you right up there at the top, too.
Flowers, a sash, it's coming.
Chris, I will say, Chris, you received all tournament, now I'm working from memory, which is very, very dangerous, by the way. I believe you got all tournament honors for our Costello tournament, correct? Right? And so your commitment, your effort, everything you put forth on the court, along with obviously some of your teammates, is really an important thing, right? Because not only do the JV players and the modified players see that, but my son sees it, and our community sees it, and we appreciate it. So here's the toughest part, because you're going to have to stand up in front of everybody. You thought you were going to have two people to stand with. Please come on over. What I'd like to do is give you your all-league honorable mention. Right? Congratulations. I really started to solidify my true love when it comes to sports spectating this year, right? And it's really different than it used to be. I've realized how much I love attending like swim meets, how much I love attending, I said this once before, wrestling matches, how much I love indoor track and field. Everybody's rooting for each other, whether it's your runner or not, everything's positive, right? And if you've never been to the Armory, right, which Dr. Sander, the late Dr. Sander, used to be the president of, that's really where the majority of our indoor season takes place. We had a number of really exciting things happen this indoor season, which actually makes some of the alumni that I graduated high school with very upset, right? Because some of them set some of these records, right? In the race walk, Ali Lemashak was a league champion, all right? We had Frank, who was a league champion, but also set a new school record for the 55 dash. There was one race, in fact, I think it was a relay, where he lost his shoes, or one. I think the legend says you lost both shoes, but I think it was really only one. We set, reset, and reset the school record in the weight throw. All right. We were also able to set a new school record in the 4x2. So while some of these students didn't have a chance to win the league honors, they also achieved many things in other areas, right? Records that have been here in the district for decades and decades, unbroken. It's amazing to have just in one season, like for example the weight throw, a set and reset a number of times. It's just amazing. It means you not only have one really talented athlete, but you have a few. Also the 4x2 for new school record, right? We have Alex, Skylar, Margaret, and Elena. And really, Frank, I'm sorry, right? You're the lone guy up there, Frank Rosa. But on the all-league side for our girls' indoor track team, they really cleaned up. They did very, very well in a number of different events. So I'd like to invite everyone that's here from our indoor track team to stand. Come on over here. I want to congratulate you all and also make sure that you receive your league plaque. She's not here?
Margaret is.
Margaret? No.
Yeah, Margaret's.
Nope, she's not here. She is here. Alec? Nope.
Oh, totally.
Yeah?
All three of them. I tell you, he's
Nope.
yeah.
Nope. Frank is all the way there. There you go, Frank. Guys, congratulations. Thank you so much for... Oh, my gosh. You were teasing me before at the lacrosse game. Guys, thank you so much for all the work. All right, thank you. You guys can take a seat. Yeah, I have to say, I have a number of, not just students that I graduated with, but alumni that were either younger or older that know that I'm the athletic director now. And so some of them who are hold school records call me periodically, and they say, has anyone broken it yet? Has anyone broken it yet? How close are they getting? I have to say, you're making a lot of them very nervous. if you haven't already broken them.
Jesse? I'll just add that I know a lot of our track members also did a marathon in honor of, oh, you're getting to that. I'm sorry. I thought you were moving on to the next sport.
Do you want to?
No, I want you to. I just thought we were moving on to
one highlight. Here's the challenging part of a presentation like this. I could spend 20 minutes on each child, right? We could also talk about the things that their team accomplished. We could talk about new events that we held. I mean, it really could just go on forever, and they would all kill me, right? One of the really exciting things that we did this year, and we've done things similar to this in the past, but what impresses me the most about it is that it really was a collective effort between a number of different individuals, but also organizations, right? I mentioned before the Armory, where we attend most of our indoor track events. Well, they hold a fundraiser which provides, Molly, correct me on this, but they provide scholarships to students who otherwise couldn't attend universities.
Academic counseling and SAT, PSAT department for disadvantaged kids in the Washington Heights area in New York City schools.
So through a joint effort of our indoor track team, which had 80-some athletes on it, but also our booster club, who gave us some money to help kind of get the wheels moving on creating a team to both fundraise and be a part of this wonderful event that really honored one of our past residents. And it wasn't just our athletes that participated, and if I remember correctly, I actually think you guys did quite well, placing in some of the higher places among all the different groups that were running.
Actually won the Open Women's Division.
Yeah. Wow. And again, it was a group of boosters that also ran it as well. Now, you can't really see it here, but on the back of the shirts, it said, I think, Dr. Sander taught me, and each shirt had a slightly different quote or word that really kind of represented what Dr. Sander did. So it was a really wonderful experience that I think a lot of people, not just our athletes, but our community at large, kind of, appreciated, learned from, and was able to experience. And Molly, thank you for helping to coordinate along with our boosters, right, to get that off the ground. Is that good?
That was great.
Now, varsity wrestling. I said this before. This is one of my newfound favorite sports to be a spectator at. Varsity wrestling, we tried a lot of stuff this year that we had never tried before. At first, we had a larger team than we really have ever had, at least in recent history. We had about the same size varsity, but we had a modified team for really the first time in years. And together, we hatched this harebrained idea, right, that it would be a great idea to offer the sectional finals for wrestling here in Hastings, right? Something that we've certainly never done and isn't typically done in such a small district. But we said, no, this is going to be great. It'll be a good way for us to highlight what our wrestlers are doing in our community and also the importance of participating in a sport like that. They really worked hard all season long, right? To learn the skills. I mean, physically, it's very demanding, right? You would imagine. Their practices are late at night here in they practice after modified sports down in the Farragut gym. And the night before sectionals, I got to be honest, I had no idea what to expect, right? We set everything up, we did all we could, we did our homework, we were ready, and then it happened, right? Sectionals began. We hosted, on Friday, Saturday, we had roughly 1,000 spectators in our building each day. We hosted about 18 small schools here, which meant about 200 athletes. All of our wrestlers competed on our kind of home soil here in sectionals in their own gymnasium, something that we've never really done, right? It was a really great opportunity because I don't know if you can see in the background, I mean, Owen's got a great photo there, but if you look past Owen, there wasn't a free seat. Some of them were Hastings families. In fact, a number of them were Hastings families that did not have a wrestler. They said, oh, we got to watch this. This is going to be crazy. Our boosters, once again, hosted a full cafeteria down in the green gym because there were so many people in the building. And it really was the energy that you never really see all right, especially in a small school. The wrestlers, modified, they were around there. I got to be honest, if you've never been to a wrestling meet, it's pretty amazing. The modified, it's a little traumatizing. The modified players got to carry around basically like a foam noodle. And at the end, there's so much going on in a wrestling tournament that they actually have to run out on the mat and they have to whack the official when the bell goes off. Because there's so much noise, there's so much going on, there's so many mats and athletes all competing at the same time. The modified players loved it, right? So Owen, for this second year in a row, really, I mean, just kind of was wonderfully successful, especially at the sectional level. He won a section championship this year and the 195 weight class. And what was your weight? 170. Owen's actual weight, if you know anything about wrestling, Owen wrestled up a weight class, which is not typically what someone wants to do when they wrestle. So he was almost 20 pounds lighter than most of his opponents, okay? He had wonderful success here in our gymnasium and then actually went on to represent us at the state level in Albany, right? And at that event, it really was, I mean, look at the arena that they're in on the right-hand side. It's a really exciting opportunity. Allie, we talked about this back at the beginning of the year because Allie went and competed at Ithaca College for the swimming states. And actually, Caitlin, I lost you, she went in a complete mud fest and ran up outside of Rochester or something, right? It's a completely unlike any other sporting experience, I certainly never had it, that we offer really. And so from me, I learned a lot, both experiencing an event like that here at Hastings, watching you kind of grit it out and push through such a challenging set of circumstances, the weight, the number of bouts you had to have, and the energy was something I don't think I've ever really experienced. So not only section champ, I also wanted to let you know, along with Allie and along with Caitlin, we will have basically your information put on here, and this will actually help decorate our athletic office, which is a little dreary at this point. But hopefully you can come back in 2 or 3 years, and this will be right there hanging on our wall. Okay? So thank you so much. Come on up here. You got a sweatshirt on. You got a sweatshirt on. Thank you all. Take a seat. And our varsity girls basketball team. So we actually had quite a young varsity girls basketball team this year. That's really exciting, right? Because we have had such an uphill climb for so many years. Just in our league, right? If you know anything about girls basketball, we all know about Irvington, right? That's a very, very difficult mountain to climb, right? You also have opponents like Woodlands who are perennially pretty good. We've had one of the most difficult league schedules ever. Well, this year we had a pretty young team and we had a wonderfully successful season. We actually got, in my limited experience in Hastings, we actually got a lot of ink. We got a lot of social media about our female athletes on the girls' team. We had, and some of you may appreciate this, there'll be a blast from the past. They even started conjuring up old Hastings athletes, right? Tara Flaherty, who is now a physical education teacher at Byram Hills, who, if you wander around down at my end of the building, down near the Cochran Gym, you'll see her name up on the wall for Con Ed recipient. You'll see her up on the wall for All-American as a talented swimmer, softball player, and basketball player. And there she is in her Hastings jersey, a much older Hastings jersey, but a Hastings jersey, right? She completed her career with 1,300 points here in Hastings and now coaches the varsity girls team over at Byram Hills. This one I just had to do for fun. This also came up. If you know about the girls basketball team, you know our varsity coach, Colleen, all right? She's actually number 41 there on the left. That was her in high school when she played at East Chester. So there just seemed to be this energy around our girls basketball team this year, this recognition, this highlight that we seem to see, not just like in our building, the excitement, but also outside. In a small school like Hastings, we don't always get a ton of ink. But our girls basketball team, I think there's this energy and excitement about the direction they're moving. Melanie Daly, who's actually here with us today, was the Player of the Week for LOHUD. They had a whole write-up about her, and it was a really wonderful thing where they highlighted some of her accomplishments throughout the year. And at the end of the season, right, they actually went on the road to play in Pleasantville, a higher-seeded team. They beat them. In the beginning, it was touch and go, but they really had a great experience. They pushed all the way through the end. And they won on the road, which is a really, really difficult thing to do when you go in someone else's gymnasium and it's packed with their fans, right? Now, of course, they came back and they walked into the buzzsaw of Irvington High School in the next round, right? But that energy taking us forward is really exciting. From my perspective, it's a wonderful thing to see kind of where we are and where I think we can get with our girls basketball team. So what I'd like to do, I'd actually like to invite the girls basketball players that are here to come on up. We have all-league honors for Melanie Daly, Paige Martin, and Lindsay Drozd, and all-league honorable mention for Jennifer Caruso, Ani Lefevre, and Mary Kay Kennedy. All right? So there you go. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Sorry, I know it's uncomfortable shaking.
Congratulations, ladies.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right, so once again, I actually overstayed my welcome like usual, but my message really to the athletes is, first of all, thank you for coming. Thank you for your hard work. We look forward, even you seniors, don't give up on me yet, right? Keep working all the way through the end of this season. I think that what you get and what you give in the community of athletics really mirrors everything that happens after high school, whether it's in college and your pursuits there or beyond that in the workplace, friendships, families, all of it, right? So once again, thank you. I think I've learned more from you guys in the past winter season than you probably ever got from me, and I appreciate that. And I honestly hope that never changes, right? Thank you again, guys.
And on behalf of our Board of Education, we thank you. We know it's not easy to be a student athlete. You know, after school, you're not doing your homework. You're spending hours, and especially if you have an away game or if you're going to the armory or wherever traveling, it takes a ton of time and dedication, and we just know how hard you work, so know how much we appreciate it. We also appreciate the efforts of your parents in helping to make all this happen, and your coaches. I see a few of our coaches out there. So thank you to all, and just a real big thank you to Jesse Merchant, because you have taken this athletic department and taken it to new heights, and we appreciate so much. We appreciate what we've done with bringing the wrestling here, bringing recognition to our athletes, and just everything you've done to inspire everything with athleticism in Hastings. Okay. I think the remainder of our meeting is pretty much our business meeting. So I would say, I think you know what I'm going to say. Why don't we take a 2-minute break? If you guys want to depart, feel free. We're back and moving into our business items. So first we have item 5 is all our business items, various contracts. I think there's quite a bit from the music hall for payment. So we have items 1 through 22. We can do them as a consent agenda, but if anybody wants to pull anything out for discussion or separate vote, feel free.
Yeah, I have some questions about Gravity Goldberg. It's really more the comparison between the 3-year and the 5-year. I don't
Sorry, Christina, do you just want to give a little more detail?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily opposed to the 5-year, but in looking at the proposal for the 5-year and then looking at the proposal for the 3-year, I have some questions regarding the comparison and what would be done And so that's the only thing I would like to just, bring up.
Sure.
Is that, I don't know how to do that. Like, do we pull it out? Do you want me to just?
Yeah,
search
maybe
on-
if there's specifics, do you want to share them?
Yeah, so we had requested, so when it was first rolled out, it was rolled out as a 5-year, but potentially a 3-year, right? And this was when it was presented by Dr. Montesano. So under the 5-year, it has a proposal of what is going to be done in each year. And year 5 of the 5-year has to do with integration of literacy and learning and various components about reading. But when we requested the 3-year, it seems like that would be in year 2. So my question is if, and I'm not suggesting we go to 3 years, but if the contract was changed and if the district decided to go to 3 years, and you're looking at the 3-year proposal, and presumably, she's not here, I can't ask her, but presumably Gravity and her team are saying that reading components and word study, I don't know why this is on, I'm sorry. It's my mom. In any event, so she's proposing, if we were to move it to 3-year, that it be in year 2. But for the proposal, and then even what was presented during this school year, it appears that what would be in year 2 of the 3-year proposal would be in year 5 if we were to contract her for 5 years. So I guess one of my questions is, why is that? I mean, if you're looking at word study and you're looking at breaking down the basic components of literacy, why would you wait until year 5? And then if we look at what is being proposed for next year, which is a type of writer's workshop, which I fully support, it's not that I don't support it, why would that be at year 2? It just doesn't really seem to fit. And I'm not sure where the answer lies. I mean, I'd also say that I know this first year's reading workshop, I know it's gotten a lot of, positive feedback. I think that's wonderful. But when you're talking about reader's workshop, when you're talking about things like writer's workshop, it's my understanding that they're pretty basic. I mean, most of the people who are teaching in this district have either taken a Lucy Calkins class or have taken a class that was taught by her or some other type of writer or reading workshop. So I guess my question is that if we're going to be spending money in this PD, not that a writer's workshop isn't valuable, not that a reader's workshop isn't valuable, but why is it being done in this order? It would seem that this word study kind of thing, that would come first. By doing these other workshops, but reading workshop first year, writer's workshop second year, you're putting the cart before the horse. But then when you look at the proposal that she gives for 3 years, she's saying, oh, wait, we'll take that 5-year, year 5, and we'll put it at year 2. So again, I'm not saying I oppose a 5-year PD. I think that the PD apparently is working. I think that people like it, teachers, students, parents. But I guess my question is that why is that the case, and how does that potentially impact students in terms of their reading ability? And I don't even know if there is an answer. So
She might have an answer, though.
yeah.
I would imagine she does, but having implemented the workshop model as a teacher, as a principal, and as a district administrator, word study is typically not at the front end of that process.
I'm sorry, word study what?
Word study is not typically at the front end of that process because you are so immersed in literacy as it relates to reading and then writing, or other districts might go a different way and do writing first and then reading. I think that's dependent on the district and what they've identified as a need. The word study piece, though, as it stands, is also embedded throughout both reading and writing workshop. The district also already has, we have foundations in place, let's say for, as an example, in the primary grades, they are doing word study embedded in that. So it's not that there is no word study and that we're waiting for the 5th year for word study to happen. It is about developing a word study program that is rooted in the workshop model, which is a bit different than other word study programs. So it really grows organically. based on my experience, what led the team here to construct the 5-year plan in this way. I was not part of that conversation, but my understanding is that it was based on a needs assessment that was done of our school and with our teachers' input and of our students' performance, and that shaped the proposal.
Okay.
The feedback, sorry.
No.
And so the feedback based on this year has been positive, as you pointed out. But one of the things that has been really critical to that work has been the professional development that's embedded in the learning. Our teachers are very much engaged in learning processes together, collaboratively. They're engaged in planning the units of study, which I think is critical because there's a significant amount of ownership. I know we value, and I know the board values autonomy and giving our teachers voice in what they're doing. That's a part of this. So the idea of why certain things lay where they lay in this, 5-year plan, like I said, I wasn't part of those front-end conversations because it happened before my time, but based on my experience in other districts, that's not necessarily atypical. And it seems to be working, again, right now, right, we're in the early stages of it in the way that it's being rolled out. And so, yeah.
Can I, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Donna.
I just want to clarify, we're not deciding between them, right? I mean, you're recommending that we do, after extensive discussions internally with your administrators and the teachers, what you're recommending as the better approach for us is the 5-year, and so it's not like we need to vote on one versus the other, right?
The recommendation is the 5-year plan for different reasons that I've shared with the board.
Okay.
And not necessarily just what I shared right now, in other reasons as well. And what you're voting on tonight, as far as I can recall, and Maureen can correct me, it is the contract for next year.
For the, yes, that's
based
correct.
on a 5-year plan, though.
Okay.
Right? So
All right.
And Donna, one thing, if we were to change anything, what I was going to suggest is maybe we want to go back to Gravity and ask her, specifically about the ordering. In the contract, it is thought of as a year 2 out of a 5-year. It's a 1-year contract, but it does attach what she's going to cover in that year. So we may want to have a little flexibility in that if when we sort of have this talk with her, maybe she's, because it is odd. Why I guess is it at the tail end of a 5-year and in the middle of a 3-year? I guess that's the question.
I mean, my reaction to that is that I feel like it's really up to our administrators to be analyzing that, and I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason you went with the 5-year plan included the fact that you felt that, among other things, the sequence and everything about it was going to be more successful. I don't feel like it's really for the board to sort of nitpick. I mean, we either going to approve what they're recommending or they're not. We can, I mean, for us at this point to go back to Gravity and sort of reopen whether we're doing it or not just doesn't seem like what our role is.
And I don't want to comment on that. I just want to say that Gravity has been actively part of the conversation, and Gravity bases her decisions not only on our needs as a district, but on the research, not only that she's done, but that foundationally is critical to the workshop model.
I can ask a question here, then. We can vote tonight on your recommendation, which is 5-year plan, and that'll be done. We'll take care of that.
We'll vote for next year, approving.
Voting for next year's
But then still
allocation.
have a conversation.
Yep.
Well, but I think beyond us as a board having a conversation, because to your point, it's really us getting into the administrative purview of running a school versus, tell me what folks think of this, you as a parent and a highly informed parent because of your board position, but speaking as a parent, are in a reasonable place to speak to Amy and say, why is this the way in which it's done? And but identifying, like, I'm asking a question as a parent that happens to be informed on the subject pretty well.
Questions, and I appreciate that.
You know what I mean? Like, is it just a way to kind of go about it? And I'm just throwing that out there.
I've asked questions and I've gotten the same answers.
Okay.
And there's just seems to be, sometimes I ask questions, and I'm not speaking specifically of Amy, but just in general of Gravity and not necessarily her, but I've just put some questions out there. Sometimes I have received answers, sometimes I haven't.
Okay.
And sometimes when I have received answers, they're basically the same answer that was given before, but posed in a slightly different way, as if it's new information.
Okay.
So I don't really feel, and then,
So it's sort of an offline discussion to figure out.
yeah,
the
and then
best
if
way
you
to-
look here at the 3-year plan, if you recall, we had been requesting for quite some time the difference between the 5-year plan and the 3-year plan.
Right.
And it wasn't until April that we actually got that traction, and we got this report of what the 3-year plan would be. So after a number of requests, we finally got this. So once we got this, which is what? We're in April.
Yeah.
We're in May, sorry, we're in May.
Yeah.
This is just like 2 weeks old. So when you look at this, which is fresh and new,
Yeah.
and you compare it to the proposal, but also you compare it to the presentation that was given, it just looks to me like, I'm not saying it's a disconnect, but I would like some clarification and transparency as to why, word study and reading components are year 2 here, but here and in the 5-year plan, it's not until the end.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's getting in the weeds. I think that's asking clarifying questions. And I'm not
Yeah, I
saying
think
that
that's
I'm
something
not
that's
voting for 5 years. I think it's great that our teachers could have 5 years of professional development, and it seems like it's working. But what I'm saying is this is new. So if this is new, then maybe the proposal or other things that have been discussed earlier in the year, maybe that warrants another conversation.
I don't know, I'm just going to finish
Yeah.
my thought, because I don't think that's unreasonable in that, as a board member, I'm far from an expert as to, frankly, what word study means outside of the wordly wise practice that happens in my kitchen, and where that should fit in the teaching of literacy, right? But you clearly are much closer to it. And the fact that you identify, I wouldn't even identify this. Like, it wouldn't even show up on my radar as being in year 5 versus year 2. And if you see that as worthy of, hey, why is it year 5 rather than year 2 and this versus that?
That's all I'm asking.
That's reasonable.
Can I just throw a proposal
That's
out
all
here?
I'm asking.
No, go, Doug.
Well, I mean, it seems this contract doesn't start till September.
Right.
We still have a couple board meetings to vote on it. There's a question on the table that you have, which you need clarification. I think we should table this, get the clarification, and we'll come back and we'll vote on it. I mean, is that?
That sounds,
But you're not saying that you weren't going to vote for it. Is that her question, that you would vote for it if she said something different?
well, it's just we're locked into this contract if this is the one we approve, and maybe through a conversation with Gravity, it may come out that based on the needs of our students, she wants to switch around. The proposal, the contract does have the layout of exactly what's covered, so we are wedded to it once it's approved.
I mean, I would say that, we have a recommendation from the superintendent to go this way, and it sounded like people didn't object to going this way, except now we're going to hold off. And I just feel like...
But it sounds,
Gravity has been through so
it sounds
much.
like, again, I'm on Tim, I would not have picked up on this distinction, but clearly Christina has, and it's a material distinction in your mind, and as a result of that, it's something you want to explore further. I guess if there was a time pressure, I think there's value in us voting on it now. It doesn't seem like there's a time pressure. If you want to get more information.
I would just like more information.
Get more information, and we vote on it on May 15th. I guess I just wonder why we're taking
Right.
so much time.
And I'll add to that.
I think it's 2 weeks where we're just getting, I mean, it's fine.
And I was just going to add, this is a $300,000 product that we're buying. It's 5 years at $60,000 each. That's a big ticket item, and we're fiduciaries. And if there's a question on the table without a time pressure to fine-tune this product to make it as good as possible, then I think it's worth pursuing. I mean, Tony gave us an answer, but it sounds like it's your interpretation, but you don't know what Gravity's thinking. So if there is no time, is there no downside?
And maybe part of it has to do with the change, from Montesano to Tony and whatnot. I don't know.
I will just say that if she moved it to the second year, at the very least, my guess is you asked her to condense a 5-year plan to a 3-year plan, so that stuff has to get condensed.
But I think it's
So-
reasonable to ask her to
No, I
explain
don't
it to us, right?
I don't disagree with asking the question. I'm just saying that, partly it's logically have to be moved if we're going from 3 to 5, from 5 to 3 year. So,
I also-
and I also don't think that Gravity would be opposed to making modifications, but I imagine those modifications would be based on our student needs, based on the feedback from our staff, based on the feedback from our administrative team, and so I don't know that those questions have come up.
Yeah,
That's-
and I think that's it. I think everybody at the table here is supportive of approving this and continuing to move forward, and also supporting this, your recommendation, Tony, of a 5-year plan. I think it's just a question of, from my own perspective, understanding word study a little bit more as to how it pertains to the overall plan, and whether it's right at year 5 or right at year 3, or so. Just, and if she could just kind of do a quick write-up in response to your question.
Yeah,
works for me.
that's all. That's
Right.
all. Thank you.
All right, so we'll table that. I just want to make a comment just about item 20. That's our Royal Coach Lines, Inc. transportation. And just to say that we had a real, I emailed everybody details of the meeting. We had a really, really productive meeting this morning with Maureen and Tony. And another thank you to Maureen for pulling together a lot of information that's not easy to pull together. And it led to a really fruitful conversation. And I just want to point out that what was pointed out to me, that the figures in that are not, it's not
locked into spending that amount. It's a
cap?
estimate. It's a cap.
It's a cap. Oh.
And typically, I mean, it could be above it, but a lot of times it's below it.
But that's not necessarily the number, that's an estimation.
Yeah, the state just needs an estimate number.
Okay, so-
They're never based upon, we're not locked into that.
Okay, and I just wanted to make that
Right,
clear. Okay. Okay, so with that, let's move forward as a consent agenda for items under point 5 business, items 1 through 22, but pulling out number 10 to hopefully vote on at our next meeting. May I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next is our placement for CSE and CPSE, which is also under item 5. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Item 6, personnel. Tony, is there anything that you wanted to highlight here?
No, appointing a couple of staff members who will be joining our team, our FLES leave of placement, our social studies teacher in the middle school, and also our new football coach. They will be here, and we'll probably celebrate our new appointees actually in August, once everything is done.
Okay.
We have a couple of leaves being requested, one being modified, and there is a reduction in workforce due to enrollment, and so that is addressed here as well.
Okay, so with that, is everyone comfortable proceeding as a consent agenda for item 6 under A, appointments, B, leave of absence, and C, reduction in force? And may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, minutes, item 7, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was, what was the date? August?
April.
No, excuse me.
April 17th.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Just that this is November, so just wait. Yeah, I corrected it.
Oh, oops. Well, we can approve those minutes, too. There we go. I think we're still waiting on a second. All in favor? Okay. Point 8, new business, strategic planning. Tony, is that you or Doug?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just for purposes of thinking about planning into next year, I had a conversation with a couple of board members about strategic planning and what that might look like. So I did engage in a conversation today with Robert, who had facilitated our retreat, or a couple of our retreats actually, and he talked me through what the strategic planning process looks like when he facilitates it. So he facilitates a year-long process. He starts it out by celebrating all the things that are happening in the community based on so focus group conversations, interviews that he does, and that is the starting point. And then he works into phase 1, which would involve the board developing a vision, why it's critical, kind of looking at the entire district. He then works to engage focus groups at different stakeholder groups. He also facilitates a community education summit where the community is invited. Generally happens off-site so that it can not necessarily be in the school. And he engages the community in some consensus building processes around the vision statements that would have been generated by the board in different focus groups. He engages the community in a survey. He engages the students in a student engagement survey. There's a student focus group as part of it. And then there's the development of a legacy team, which is formed by teachers and administrators. Sometimes parents and students are a part of that, depending on the situation. And that legacy team kind of synthesizes everything that's been collected prior and takes the vision statements and discusses how they actualize the vision. Then it comes back to the board to finalize the plan and put it all together. And the process is about a year long from start to finish. The ideal scenario would be to start before the close of this school year and be done at the close of next school year. In the end, he takes the team through developing a vision statement that's rooted in the values and the beliefs of the district and an action plan. He doesn't do a traditional 5-year strategic plan. He doesn't believe that those are effective based on his experience. So,
Sorry, so what does he do?
He does an action plan.
An action plan.
Yeah, that's, I think, more short-term.
And one of the things Tony and I talked about was getting some examples of his action plans
Right.
from other districts to understand what that actually means.
100%, yeah.
So
Because there's got to be some time frames on some of those actions, whether they're rolling one-year plans that are revisited or whatever. And I think it would be useful for maybe a board member too, maybe Tony, to talk to a couple of districts that have gone through the process.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
With him.
With him,
Yeah,
right.
I definitely think it's a good idea for board members to get a sense of what that looks like. I will email Robert tomorrow to see what he can give us.
And this is Robert of previous experiences, Robert.
Yeah. Only because he had brought up strategic planning when we started, and he actually shared, if you recall, at our first retreat, he shared a video, I don't remember what district it was, that he did a strategic plan in, which would, in essence, was an example of what the video he would do in the beginning of our project as well. So, yeah. But I mean, he's not the only person to go with.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Is it like I like him quite a bit, but it does make sense to contact one or two other superintendents.
Yeah.
But I do think, as a broad statement, A, this has to get done, and B, having somebody guiding.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Is
No question.
Oh, yeah.
You have to.
yeah, it's a fine idea.
Great.
So does it make sense to see if to speak to other superintendents, Tony?
No, I will. I'll email a few people, sure. I started with Robert, and just because the conversation just came up, and so I reached out to him, and it would be great if we can try to contract starting this year, so we can allocate funds.
Yeah, I think it's
really did
great.
allocate funds into next year, and unless the work starts this year, you'll have to find the money. And I know, like it said, it's around $50,000.
It could be, right, depending on what it is.
And actually, we
So you're
would have to
saying
get
that
3 quotes.
in terms of the
because we can't
budget, it makes sense for us to start it this year?
Well, because we didn't budget anything to do a strategic plan next year, so like, we would either have to find the money out of next year's budget, or we could take it out of like what we had
Yeah.
hoped to have in reserve left for this year. But
So then we
it's
should
gonna be
work
around
hard to get
50,000.
started for this year?
Yes, and we have time to do it. Look, fortunately, because our state goes to school so late in the year, like our kids go to school so late into June, that was actually Robert's first question. He was like, so we want to make sure your kids are in school if we start this year.
But we do need to get 3 quotes.
Okay.
So
It's good to know.
And just a quick question, I don't know if this was ever part of the conversation. I like Robert, I mean, he seems like he would be very good. Are there other people, other consultants that do this sort of thing?
That's what Tony's going to ask.
Well,
others.
Okay,
What I was-
that's what you're asking. I thought you were asking other superintendents about.
Both.
Okay,
Well, what
not
I
just
what I was
Robert.
going to
An action
suggest,
plan.
is, especially if we have to get 2 other quotes, Pleasantville has a really, I really like the way their strategic plan is laid out. It's very layered. It starts from, the aspirational, and then it gets down to a really nitty-gritty action plan. And I could just find out the name of who did that, if it's the way we want to go or not the way we
I
want to
think
go.
Tony
I'll reach
probably
out to
could
Mary.
talk to the superintendent.
Oh, sure.
I'll reach
Sure,
out to
sure.
Mary, yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. That's it.
It's short, because if we had to do actual RFP and put it out, that's going to take a while. So if you can contact people and they
Yeah.
can direct quote, that's
Sure.
great.
Anything else on strategic planning?
But because it is a professional service, the work would actually absolutely have to begin. It would have to commence in order for you to be able to issue a purchase order in
For this year, yeah.
So we need a meeting before the close of our
And
fixed
actually, like,
jewel.
some work to take place.
Okay.
Before the end of
Like
June.
a
Professional
a
services
contract
can't
followed
be-
by the commencement
be
of
done by June 30th.
services.
Services in this school year.
Before July 1st?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other than superintendents, you could reach out to, like, the administrators at West Putt or NISBA. I'm sure that if they don't do the training, they know
No,
the people that
I
do.
was thinking of the curriculum person at Putnam.
At West Putt.
I didn't hear what you said, Donna.
No, I was just saying that West Putt and NISBA would probably, if they don't do the training themselves, probably
NISBA
know all the
does.
people that does.
NISBA
Yeah,
does
I
do
think
something,
NISBA
yeah.
does. I mean, at the conventions, I've definitely been to presentations by, and I'm pretty sure it was by NISBA's own staff on how they run strategic planning, but there were also some private consulting firms that did it.
Okay.
So.
Ideally, we could probably run into folks who's sort of able. Zero cost contract.
Okay, we can find out. I guess
What was the name of the guy who did it before? What was his name?
Ken Mitchell, is that who you're thinking of?
No, you're talking about back in like 98 or whatever.
Vin Benny.
2006.
Who was it?
Or was it?
No, Jay Russell was here when we did it.
Yeah, no, I know, but but wasn't he part of the group that was doing the?
Oh, you need a contractor with his group, yeah, probably.
Who? I think it was Chuck Fowler.
That's right, it was Chuck Fowler.
And Vin Benny worked with Chuck Fowler.
Chuck doesn't
And
want to
Vin
work
had
with
been
us.
a superintendent in Hastings.
But they were also
30 years
involved
ago.
with the
25
strategic
years.
planning.
Yes,
Had that
yeah.
component of the biz.
That's right.
He was-
Okay. Anything else on strategic planning? Okay, advocacy update, that's me. We have a new regulation from the state that I suggest we submit a comment to, so I'll just sort of fill you in on what it is, and then what I can do is email you the draft comment, and we can discuss it at the next meeting, but just to sort of set up the issue for you. Tony had alluded to this before. As you know, we have to have 180 days of school in order to get our full funding, which, by the way, I learned that if we're a day short, we lose 1/80th of our state funding. It's interesting. And the way the state calculates whether we've met the 180 days, the way it used to be, is they looked at how many hours per day you met. That's why we had to do some of that funky stuff this year with the half days. So the state, in an effort, a good effort to try to make things more flexible for the districts, is saying, we're not going to look at how many hours a day you meet. We're going to look at how many minutes, instructional minutes you've had over your school year. And they really just did straight multiplication, because it had been, I think, elementary schools had to do 5 hours a day, then 7 through 12 had to do 5.5. So they just straight multiplied that by 180 days, and they came up with, for K through 6, you have to have 900 minutes, and for 7 through 12, you have to have 990 minutes. So that's all fine and good. That's really not a change. But here's where the change...
900 minutes in what?
900 hours.
900 hours, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 900
Instruction,
hours.
sorry. Instructional minutes
the
is what the,
year.
right,
Yeah, it used to
okay.
be minutes.
Sorry about that, right. We would, okay. We could do K through 12 in 1 year. Okay. So anyway, 900 hours for our younger students and 990 for our older students. But here's where the change comes in, and it's how they are defining what is considered an instructional hour or an instructional minute. It used to be, under the old version, the only exclusion written in was lunch. And then recess, according to some of its memos, sometimes you could count it, sometimes you couldn't. We could always count homeroom, and we could always count the time spent changing classes. With this new rule in there, it's pulling from their comments and all, suddenly time changing in the hallways does not count anymore, and neither does homeroom, and they are explicitly ruling out recess. So this gets tricky. Now, our current schedules, we'd still be meeting everything, but it's not a great model. And even if you think, we have 4 blocks, but think about schools that have 8, well, I shouldn't say that. In our middle school, I guess we probably have 8 periods, or other schools. If you have 8 periods, time changing between those periods is somewhere 3 to 5 minutes. So you're talking 24 to 40 minutes. That doesn't count. Homeroom, 5 to 10 minutes. And what's going to happen, again, I don't think it would hit here, but what could happen in other school districts, or potentially here, is suddenly we're short on minutes. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to have to go into recess time. And what we see, if you read the more current literature, everything with recess is beneficial. Social and emotional learning takes place on, out in recess. Kids are, they're physically moving around, they feel better. And the CDC gets out there and says, with more recess, your test scores go up. Your academic achievement increases with recess. So recess is just great. Ideally, we would love the state to say, we value recess, and we're going to give you instructional minutes for that as well. So the comment that I'm I would suggest is where we say,
Can I, before we get to the comment you'd suggest, why does the state feel the need to do this? What schools are they responding to such that they're doing this for a reason? This didn't come from nowhere. And they care about 500 minutes in the elementary or
whatever, 900, 990.
900 hours in elementary and 990 in, at the middle and high school level. They're seeing something somewhere that I have to assume they're not malicious, right? Like.
Sometimes there are agendas going on that we're not aware of.
And I guess that's the question. Before I'm advocating of, like, if the letter is strictly just on that bit of information, if the letter is strictly we think recess has value, I can sign that without doing any homework on any research on my own. If the letter goes into more detail as to the decision to require 900 and 990, then I got to do out of my own due diligence. Right. What's the basis for this push from the state?
I would say this. I think as a district, we support the 900, the 990, and we thank the state for trying to make things more flexible. Where I see the problem is, please continue to count. This is what I would say. Yep. In this, please continue to count homeroom. Please continue to count time passing.
Wait. Why can count homeroom? I'm just challenging. I understand why count recess.
And well, because I think if you take away the time, I'm going to lump homeroom in with passing time is what they call it, the time in the hall. If you pull those two back, suddenly schools can suddenly find that 30 to 50 minutes of their day no longer counts, and if they're close, they'll pull that from recess.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, though. Hold on, let me just say one thing, and then I guess here's where I get nervous. We have a great district. We're already there at 900 and 990 no matter what. I can't speak to what happens across the rest of the state where I've got some place that's trying to cut back that has budget issues. They want to get rid of teachers. They want to cut back on classes. And now they're like, you know what, kids? You get 3 recesses a day and homeroom is going to be 30 minutes where you get together. And now they're like, we can meet a state mandate of 900 and 990 and save a lot of money there. It's just we're like, without knowing what they're responding to, what they're seeing across, it's a massive state, I get concerned. Like, that's my concern. Is it unintended consequences. If they're seeing something happening educationally that being responded to.
It's interesting because just to let you know where this is, it's in its second round now. It was put out as an emergency rule, which means they didn't get this done in time. It's not that it's an emergency, it's a timing issue. And there were a lot of comments. And I can send you the list of comments because it doesn't, nowhere in that are they pointing out an error. The entire justification is that we're giving districts flexibility, which is great, but they don't really address why they're changing this underlying issue of what counts as instructional time. But I will send everybody the memo that has all the information and all the comments, and then I'll send you a draft of what I've written.
Sure.
And, again, we can approve it or not approve it, that's fine, and we can do that at the next meeting. I just wanted to sort of set it up so that you guys knew what you were looking at.
And also in terms of getting multiple perspectives, I think it would be a great idea to get the perspectives of the teachers union. I mean, where do they stand on it? How would it impact the length of day for teachers, current contracts? Are there broader implications?
No, that's great, because our current contract, I guess our Hillside teachers teach 7:05, and they have to teach 5. We need 5 instructional hours there.
I guess I'm just throwing out. I'm throwing out when we get into these advocacy discussions. I'm throwing out the concept that the state is legislating towards the entire state, and that deals with so many types of schools, and where. And I have to think when we make these kinds of, we have to think beyond just what's happening in Hastings.
Of course we
on something
do.
like this,
Sure.
and so that's why I just need to understand it from that perspective.
So,
and we'll
I'll send you the memo, and
Yeah.
like I said, that had all the comments that had come in from the entire state.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
Cool.
great. Okay.
slow.
Okay.
Tomorrow's slow. I'll just hang out.
Okay, anything else on this? All right, second public comment. Do we have a public comment? Thank you for staying, by the way. Board of Education comments. Any comments?
Yeah, I walked in late, so you may have mentioned this, Tony, when you did the
highlights.
Highlights. Did you talk about the play?
The Into the Woods. We talked about it the last time. We talked about it before it happened.
Before it happened, because I just wanted to make a comment.
amazing.
I meant to
Thank
do
you.
it, actually, I meant to say something on the heels of the athletes, but I just think that it was an incredible performance, and I was thinking when we were doing the voting for the payment, it was a performance that also the musicians were
Yes, amazing.
unbelievably involved in the performance. I mean, they played throughout. It was amazing. But I thought that the high school did such a, it was really impressive, the acting, the set.
It was.
The kids were fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any other board comments?
Comment just to fill people in. We started, not, I don't know if anyone cares, but we started the traffic study today with the traffic engineers that the board and the PTSA retained. So I was out in front with a couple of the PTSA parents and the traffic engineers this morning and this afternoon, and they're going to be working on different scenarios, and there's a meeting here, I believe, May 9th, with the Transportation Working Group that I'm also attending, so if anybody is interested in going. And we'll start to kind of, it'll be things around the village. Well, no, but they're going to come that night and just start to, they took a lot of information down today, and they're familiar with the area because they've been working in Hastings all over the village, so if anyone's interested, because that's before our next board meeting, May 9th. I'll send out the details, but I believe it's here. I don't know.
May 9th?
I'm going. May 9th. I have it on my calendar.
Sorry, which day did you say?
May
was?
9th.
Oh, but that's not, I think our next board meeting is the 15th.
No, it's not for us. It's a joint, it's the one where we're joining in with the...
No, I thought you said it was the same night as our board meeting.
Oh, no, I just wanted to mention it because it's before our next board meeting.
sorry.
Yeah. So in case anybody, this is a continuation of that meeting I had gone to there's people in the village, and we're kind of working in collaboration with them, with the PTSA. So.
Great. Thank you.
One other thing, last night I attended the Facing History and Ourselves lecture, which was really, I thought, excellent. It was not a lot of attendance, but there were a number of parents, one student actually, she was wonderful, I think a middle school student, and some of the administrators were there. It was an excellent presentation, really thought-provoking, and especially around thinking, and I think they're starting to do more work in the whole area of implicit bias, and it was quite good.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. With that, I think I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? All in favor? And